Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the first council meeting of the year. Technically, I guess it's the second one, but we've had a small one. But I'd like to welcome you all here in attendance. I'm just going to ask make a couple of remarks. Public in attendance can sign in the attendance sheet. Please make sure your cell phone is on quiet. And this meeting is being audio and video recorded. And as you can tell, I'm a little stuffed up. So we're going to stand and sing "O Canada" and the opening petitions by Councillor Jonker. Let's see if I can find a note for you. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all life's once command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faith give us strength to act honorably and well in all matters before us.
Councillors, are there any changes in order of items on the agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary and/or conflict of interest? There is one noted that Councillor Trombetta had declared a disclosure of pecuniary interest at the January 13th special council meeting, which has been noted in this evening's agenda for transparency reasons. Councillor Trombetta may vote on the minutes as a resolution that is being presented only to confirm that the minutes are correct. Did you get that, Councillor Trombetta? Yes. Okay, are there any other? Seeing none, Madam Clerk. At this time we have a presentation, but before we go to that presentation, I'm going to ask, are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? Seeing none, then at this time I'd like to welcome Ms. Elizabeth Zimmerman, Executive Director of YWCA Niagara Region, to come forward to the microphone and address the YWC Niagara West programs and their upcoming coldest night of the year event. You can sit at that chair right there and then use that mic. Yep, that's
okay.
We ditched the lectern. It was problematic.
Okay, great. And turn it on? Or am I good? Am I good? All right. Okay.
Elsa's just going to confirm. Just tap it. No, tap the foam. Great, thank you so much, Ms. Zimmerman. Are there any comments or questions? I'd like to just thank you for coming back to council and keep encouraging us. I'm already signed up, and I threw the challenge out to my peers, and so far they haven't taken it up. But I know I could also hit them up for money, so it'll all come out in the wash. I'll walk for them, yeah. And I'm always I just want to say too, like, it's called the coldest night of the year, but it's really, sometimes it's quite balmy. I can't believe how warm it actually has been in some of these evenings. So it's a nice brisk walk through Grimsby, quite enjoyable. So thank you again for coming, and Councillor Jonker.
Yeah, just what were the dates and the times again, and maybe a bit of detail for distance and.
Sure, yeah, sure. It's Saturday, sorry if I didn't say that, I should have said that right at the top. February the 22nd. It starts at 4 o'clock. You can walk 2.5 K, or if you're really ambitious, you can walk up to 10 kilometers. Then right after that, we do have this chili cook-off that is a competitive event, and is always really well received and popular. And the nice thing about this event is it doesn't take up a whole lot of time. Within a couple of hours, you've had a good brisk walk, and you've had something to eat, and you're ready for the rest of your evening. So it's a nice way to do something that supports, as I said, the programs that we offer, as well as to be a part of a community event.
Yeah, and so for those Fitbitters among us, you can get your 10,000 steps in just in the course of the evening. So there you go. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call upon Mr. Albert Witteveen for Regional Councilor's remarks.
I think it works now. I think we turned it on. Thank you, Mayor and members of council and staff and the public. I'd like to start by updating you on a couple of initiatives that we were taking in the community service and public health. We're working on updating our Niagara Emergency Management Program, tackle such things as storm emergency and a medical emergency, as today as we see issues with the coronavirus. So we're reviewing those plans and updating them. And we're continually working on our community homeless prevention initiative. Our biggest challenge is to fund the shortfall from the province as we have a higher per capita of those that require social support. So we received an update on the Early On program. I shared that some with William. Some highlights were the resources from the province level were on a child basis, and some challenges are that we're finding that some centers are underused and others are in overcapacity. So internally, a study is just taking place to be completed this spring to better understand, where parents are taking their children and where are they coming from in the municipality, and this way we can address the need to understand the users of the program and identify some efficiencies in there. So there may be some that may be closed and some that are enhanced. So I know it's important to people to have those early on programs. If one is closed, then we usually hear that many are closing, and it's just going to be a kind of a readjustment for those. The following day, I attended a planning and economic development. We had a presentation regarding the new Niagara official plan and reporting on the public consultation summary. Questions that were addressed or were put out there is what is the most important to you? Questions like things like answers: protecting the natural environment, transportation improvements, more housing options, access to open space, waterfronts, natural areas, supporting jobs and economic prosperity. And so the next steps of this process will be to develop and evaluate options, prepare a draft policy and mapping, and then consult on those draft policies and mapping. So we're moving forward in that, and I believe completion is shortly. So for the economic portion of the meeting, we discussed our 5-year action plan. It was kind of stalled when we came on council beginning of 2019, and we've kind of picked up where we left off, and going forward, we're looking at the partners in the community and working groups, and of course, economic development personnel. Some municipalities have their own staff, and so it was given direction that economic development officers sit and talk amongst themselves, work collaboratively through within the region, because they're the ones that know the best of what economic development opportunities are in each municipality, and we have an economic development person from the region. So we're going to do this internally versus hire a consultant to give us a kind of a plan. We're going to look at creating refreshing that 5-year action plan internally. And then later this month, I attended Roma Conference, which was last week, with Mayor Bosma, Councillor O'Reilly, and CAO Bev Henry. And so on Sunday, I attended a session on ways to slow and calm. Myself, actually, with Councillor O'Reilly, we attended that session in the afternoon, just looking at ways to slow and calm traffic throughout our community. It was called Slow Down. So we looked at, who speeds, when, why they do it, and where speeding occurs. So interesting solutions were shared, and Councillor Riley may add to this, but it basically, one size doesn't fit all, but there's some interesting options. And then Monday we had a couple delegations that Bev and staff had arranged. We met with a PA on Drea. Oh, Dave, you might help me out. Canajan. Okay, yep. The PA of the Minister of Environment, and we talked about bylaws around removal of fill and topsoil. And second delegation was Minister Hardeman. On our focus was on cannabis odor and concerns with outdoor. So I know there was another delegation on Tuesday, but I had work commitments, so I went home that evening. So I overall felt it was a good conference and a good use of time. And thank you, staff, for creating those opportunities of delegation, and thought it was great that we could lobby our concerns to the leaders of the province. So thank you, and just wanted to, I'm sure other councillors, hopefully you can report on what happened Tuesday. I'd be interested to know, some of the outcomes. So that's my update for January. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments or questions for the councillor goings on at the region? Thank you for your monthly update. Yeah. Oh, yes, okay, good. We have confirmation of minutes. Regular December 16, Councillor Gannan, you have that resolution.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jonker that the minutes of the open session portion of the December 16th, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the December 16th, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor. You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Gannan, seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Just for the record, I like this e-scribe stuff. We have council minutes special. Councillor Jonker, you have that resolution?
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gannan that the minutes of the January 13th, 2020 special council meeting be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Jonker, seconded by Councillor Gannan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Public meeting under the Planning Act, January 13th. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jonker, that the minutes of the public meeting held on January 13th, 2020 for the renaming of Silver Street in the town of Smithville between Town Line Road and Rock Street be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. I have a public meeting under the Planning Act. Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Riley that the minutes of the public meeting held on January 13, 2020, under Section 34 of the Planning Act, with respect to zoning bylaw amendment, Darren Krogan, High River Developments, Inc., be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Excellent. That's the minutes. 9, we have one communication from the Honourable Steve Clark. Hopefully you read that, but it's good news. This item is just for information. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to Mayor's remarks. I just have a few. Just to complete what Councillor Witteveen reported on Roma on Tuesday. We had a joint delegation, Madam CAO, Councillor Riley, myself, representing West Lincoln. We had a delegation alongside Grimsby's, Mayor Jeff Jordan, and CAO Harry Schlang, and one of their councillors was no, okay. And then on Lincoln, Mayor Easton, CAO Mike Kirkopoulos, and I don't believe they had an extra. Can't think of. Anyways, it's quite a delegation. And then the region was also represented through Chair Bradley and CAO Ron Tripp, as well as Sam Osterhoff was in attendance. But anyways, we had quite a delegation where we met with Minister of Transportation Carolyn Mulrooney with respect to our north-south. So again, keep putting that forward. Probably the key messaging that was presented was the united front of the 3 municipalities in conjunction with the region and the region's commitment to do the environmental assessment study work. And we just want to keep putting that forward, keep advancing that file. And there seems to be a lot of receptivity, to this nature, and they can't ignore us. So it was a good, overall, Roma was very good conference. I found many of the workshops enjoyable. And so we continue to develop, and I'm glad that Councillor Riley also participates vigorously, and it's great to have that kind of backup. So thank you, Councillor Riley. The second thing that I just wanted to highlight is just briefly for the public record, our myself, Madam CAO, continue to meet with hospital foundation staff and HHS staff regularly. We have had several meetings. We continue to have meetings. There's progress at each of these meetings. Some of the information that is discussed, of course, is some of it's conjecture, some of it's hopeful, wishful thinking, and some of it's discussion of the responsibilities of the municipalities and so on and so forth. Just wanted to say that work is ongoing, and we continue alongside the citizens working group and the other organizations and agencies putting forward our hospital. So hopefully that in the upcoming weeks and months we can start making some a little bit more definitive announcements about how this is progressing. So I just want to leave it at that, just to say that work is ongoing and it's quite vigorous. Let's conclude my remarks for this meeting. I have reports of committee, Planning, Building, Environmental Committee, January 13. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution.
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the January 13th, 2020 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items, and there are none that I know of, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the January 13th, 2020 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganaan, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Admin, Finance, Fire. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Jonker, that the minutes of the open session portion of the January 21st, 2020 Administration Fire Finance Committee meeting be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exceptions of items, and there aren't any at this moment, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the January 21st, 2020 Administration Finance Fire Committee be accepted. I think that's in there twice, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act. I read that right.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Jonker. Any comments or questions, or any items that want to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. I'm really glad that this meeting's going quite quickly. Go home with garlic. I have Councillor Trombetta, the next resolution, Public Works Recreation.
Myself, second by Councillor Riley, that the minutes of the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting being held on January 21st, 2020 be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exemption of, and there are none.
Councillors, you heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Is there any discussion or any items that need to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. There are no items for reconsideration. Seeing none, Madam Clerk. And there are no motions to rescind either. Moving on to other business, 14.1. Treasurer, Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis has a memo, 2020 interim tax bylaw. This item is for information only. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. 14.2. Treasurer, Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis. Recommendation report RFDT-2-2020. Councillor Ganaan, you have that motion.
I do, and it's very long, so bear with me. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that report RFD-T-02-20 regarding asset management roadmap development and FCM grant dated January 27th, 2020 be received for information. And 2, that council direct staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for asset management program and capacity building in West Lincoln. And 3, that the Township of West Lincoln commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submission to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program: risk framework development, life cycle framework development, service level framework and development, and that the cost to complete the above project is estimated at $70,100, with $50,000 being requested through the FCM grant and $20,100 from the Provincial Modernization Fund.
Councillor, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganaan, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Councillor Riley.
Just one quick question, sir. I guess through you, maybe to the CAO or whoever you feel is appropriate to answer this. Does that, if we are unsuccessful with the grant, will the full amount come from the modernization fund, or where would that come from if there's a shortfall?
Through you, Mayor Bylsma, to Councillor Riley. I am going to ask Donna DeFilippis, our treasurer, to respond to this, please.
Through you, Mayor Bylsma, to Councillor Riley. what staff will do is if we're not successful with this application, we will report back to council requesting that the full amount of the modernization fund be used.
So we will be informed.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Uh, 14.3, CAO, Bev Hendry, Niagara Region On-Demand Transit. Councillor Jonker, you have that motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley, that the Township of West Lincoln thank Mr. Robertson, Director, and Rob Salewich, Program Manager from Niagara Region Transit Services, for their informative presentation at the January 21st, 2020 Administration Finance Fire Committee meeting, and that Niagara Region be advised that the Township of West Lincoln supports Niagara Region's expansion of transit into West Lincoln through an on-demand model, and that Niagara Region be advised that the Township of West Lincoln is or is not interested in participating in the on-demand transit deployment for delivery of local transit trips on behalf of the municipality at a cost of $250,000 per year at this time.
I'm going to go to Madam CAO for an explanation.
Thank you. So following on the presentation last week with the two presenters from Niagara Region Transit talked to us about two things. The first being the fact that they're going through an on-demand model of expansion for transit into the West Niagara area. And then the third part of that resolution there is for council to make a decision on whether or not it's interested in participating in the on-demand transit deployment for delivery of local transit trips. So the resolution, we're looking for council to advise whether or not the Township of West Lincoln is interested or is not interested in participating in such a program, and at the cost of $250,000 per year at this time. How long?
Per year.
Oh, per year.
Yeah.
So it's so
So they changed the program, I guess.
right now it's a pilot program, and so I think they're looking at 1 or 2 years. Was what they were talking about last week.
Is there somebody who would like to make a direction on that? Councillor Jonker?
Yeah, I myself kind of understood it that we will be getting the on-demand services for transportation from, let's say, West Lincoln somewhere to St. Catharines or out of our township. But unless we pay that $250,000, we won't be able to have it where a resident can go from St. Anne's to Smithville. I myself am not in favor of opting in at this time for $250,000 per year. I don't see the return on it for us, and I honestly, to see what our budget looks like already for what's going up this year, I don't feel that we could afford it at this time.
So there's an is not.
Yeah.
Councillor Trombetta?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I read this as well, and I know they made their presentation last week. You know, a lot of our tax money do go to the region as is, and for them to ask for more money from us, it's a little hard for me to swallow. If they want to do a pilot project, I think they should initiate it them on their own. I don't know why we have to be invested in $250,000 a year. I think it's a little steep, and if we do accept this, it's about a 3.5% increase to the levy, and I think that's a little excessive considering where we were last week. And obviously, of having a couple of side conversations with yourself too, Mr. Mayor, you know, I believe that it was high last week, and adding only this will be even astronomical,
Yeah.
well, an amount. So I won't be in favor of it. I would like to make a recommendation that it's not in the interesting, we won't, I myself won't be interested in participating. And, you know, I'd like to see a recorded vote for this as well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
So it is not, yeah.
Is not, and I'd like to see a recorded vote. Thank you, Mr.
So
Mayor.
basically, we have like the mover and seconder of the is not, so that's what we will be voting on. Okay?
But if you want everybody else's comments first, Mr.
Yeah, I know,
Vice Chair,
and so I just don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want to hear what Councilor Gann and Councilor Riley. Go ahead, Councilor.
Okay, thank you. I do want to say that I am very much in favor of the on-demand aspect of this. I think that the region is on the right track, looking at on-demand. From the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee's perspective, we've been around and around and around on transportation, just trying to find a way to move our own West Lincoln residents from one place in West Lincoln to another place in West Lincoln. And so that is very critical right now for us, and certainly more so than necessarily getting them somewhere else. I appreciate the fact that the other two opt-in municipalities are doing so. Both Lincoln and Pelham have done that, but they already had a budget line for transportation. So for them to take that $250,000 and move it from one avenue of their own U-Link or their own situation with transportation and just say, okay, let's try this regional project, it's very different than what we are, where we're starting from square one. So in spite of the fact that I know in my heart of hearts that transportation is the number one thing that comes up among seniors in our municipality, it doesn't matter where you are or who you talk to, everybody's concerned about getting from one place to another. And in fact, when Councillor Jonker refers to going from St. Anne's into Smithville, that might be just to a doctor's appointment. And we do have trouble with that because of not everybody has close neighbors, and not everybody has relatives around, and not everybody has a friend that they can call on. And we don't have a taxi service. So transportation, although I don't see this being the time to do this, we still have to keep that foremost in our minds and start looking at what we can do for our residents. Maybe at some point in time, opting into this down the road might be the answer once it's piloted and they see how well it's working, but I certainly wouldn't support it at this time either.
Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I think we're going to see that many of us agree on this, which is always good, I guess, for unity. I do want to mention, I applaud the region's ingenuity in creating this proposal. I think, as Councilor Gann mentioned, it's something that we definitely need to consider moving forward in the future. I don't believe that this is the right time for it personally myself. I know that there's a lot of benefits that we're going to see it come even more so in the future, specifically between our seniors and our youth, who are the ones that are, they'll really depend on the accessibility issues that probably face them. They're going to get the most out of it. I would just say, even like when I was looking at the numbers of what the ridership that the 2018 had for Lincoln and Pelham, it was very interesting considering how much money they spent. And I think they're worth noting again, like Lincoln had a $290,000 budget and their ridership was $2,200. I realize that wasn't the on-demand, but when you break that down, that's about $132 a trip. That was the municipality had flipped, never mind whatever contribution they would have been required to do at the time. And so when I take that projection, and they have just under 22,000 population, at 2,200 represents 10%, so 10% of the people were able to take advantage of the trip once. So I think that's something worth noting, because if that gives any indication of how the system may be affected on our end, we could be putting a big financial burden on our community for a very small portion of people that could benefit from it immediately. And so I think at this time I would hold off in supporting this, but I do think that's something we do need to consider moving forward. But I did have a question, and Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you're the right person to ask. If not, maybe you could steer it. But from my understanding, the Niagara region also had a tax levy that was put in place for Niagara Regional Transit. And so I was curious, was that levy specifically for, and I guess I'll maybe direct it you being at the region, or maybe Councilor Wood being our staff, but was that levy for specifically the intra, or was that for a combination of inter? Because as we realize, we pay a good portion of our taxes to the region. And so I feel like part of that levy would have been for all of the municipalities. And why isn't part of that money being used for this particular project? I don't think smaller municipalities should be able to flip a bill of $250,000. I think that's a huge ask. So I don't know if I don't know who the right person is to ask. So
I don't necessarily understand what your question is, but I'll take a stab and maybe I'll get something. Maybe I'll hit something. Yes, Niagara Region Transit is a relatively new concept and it's being unfolded. up until this point, generally speaking, transit has been the responsibility of municipalities like St. Catharines, Welland, and Niagara Falls, who have conducted their municipal, at the lower area municipality. The Niagara Region portion is coming online, so they're making investments in Niagara Region's transit strategy. So that's looking at this upper tier as a whole, which is connectivity to municipalities. And so that's now something that's a budget item. So hence, they're levying for it. So that it hopefully answers the first part of your question.
Okay.
So what I'd just like to add is simply that there are new transit options. Councillor Jonker highlighted it once already from the presentation, but there are new transportation options for the members of West Lincoln, and we hope to do some messaging and some communications to our residents that there is some transit options available. And Madam CAO and I have had a discussion alongside, with Councillor Ganan, who's on Age Friendly, just talking about that messaging and making sure that our residents who do pay into the regional levy utilize what the region has provided for us already, and that we don't see that gets underutilized. So for clarity, at this point, the Niagara Region's transit strategy for West Lincoln includes being picked up at your house or curb. So that's part of the discussion, and brought to one of the existing municipal transit hubs. So for example, somebody from West Lincoln could pick up receive a ride from the Village Square and be driven to Pelham, an entry point, either maybe the Brock or an entry point in Pelham, and then be able to utilize that whole system for all that it goes, the north end of St. Catharines to the south end of Welland, and that's all accessible. And then at the return from that hub back into West Lincoln.
Okay.
That's my understanding, and that's what's available to the residents for them to utilize.
Okay, because and maybe I just misunderstood or wasn't fully informed, but I just thought maybe from what I guess what I understood through the Niagara Region Transit, like everyone had to pay 2% for whatever transit was, and that is being applied among all the municipalities. That's not just the West Lincoln tax. So I wanted to make sure we weren't getting taxed twice on this, because if we were to pass this, there's 2% on top of 3.5%, and once again, our community's paying more than their fair share.
Correct. So the messaging is that West Lincoln does have some form of regional transit available to them, which allows them to go from our community to access the existing hubs and routes that are regular route. That's what do you call that? It's not on demand. It's
Fixed route?
fixed route. There we go. Thank you. Just want to get the term right.
So if I could ask one more question, and maybe this could, I'm not too sure who to direct this to, but considering, I guess, we have Pelham and Lincoln that have already committed, Grimsby is pending budget approval, and so we're the question mark, since three of, I guess, the four municipalities there are already committed. Like, I don't really think we need to contribute and be a guinea pig in this. So my question is, is like, if we don't take advantage of the pilot now, do we see any repercussions later? Like, are we not going to be able, I can't imagine this, but are we not going to be able to participate after year one, and they realize, after the pilot, they can do it a more efficient way, and then the government offers a grant or something we can utilize to make it more affordable? So I guess through you to maybe to CEO, Madam CEO.
Through you, Mayor Bilsma, to Councillor Riley, that's what the presenters were making note of last week, was that there will be another opportunity to opt in.
Perfect. So at this point, I'll make it clear, I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, any other further discussion on this? Great. So there was a recorded vote called on this. So I'm going to pass over to the clerk.
Councillor Trombetta.
Not in support.
Councillor Riley.
Not in support.
Madam Clerk.
Don't like that term?
No.
Do not support.
Oh,
Think about it from a perspective. We put an is not in there, so double negative means you're, so,
I'm quite sure we all know
so
what I
we,
mean.
so,
Okay, so there's-
I just want,
is or is
okay?
not?
As chairman, I want to make sure we're voting on the right thing. So there's three sentences here, basically. One of them is that we thank them for their presentation. So I think I'm in support of that. That we expand, we're in support of the Niagara Region's expansion through on-demand model that they're offering, but the is not was inserted, so I'm in favor of the is not for the special, right?
What's the resolution, Mr. Mayor?
That's, I paraphrased the resolution.
Breaking up the resolution, is what you're doing.
So I will read it one more, I'll read it in its entirety, because there's some confusion. But I did paraphrase it for simplicity. So, listen carefully and tell, and nod when just, that the Township of West Lincoln thank Mr. Matt Robinson, Director, and Mr. Rob Salowich, Program Manager for Niagara Region Transit Service, for their informative presentation at January 21 Admin, Fire, and Finance meeting. That Niagara Region be advised that the Township of West Lincoln supports the Niagara Region's expansion of transit into West Niagara through an on-demand model. And that Niagara Region be advised that the Township of West Lincoln is not interested in participating in the on-demand transit deployment for delivery of local transit trips on behalf of the municipality at the cost of $250,000 per year at this time. So I'm going to go back to the clerk, and now I'm not going to do any more coaching.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councillor Trombetta.
Not interested.
It's okay. You got to move on.
Councillor Riley.
I support the resolution as it was directed by the mayor.
Okay. Councillor Gannon. Councillor Jonker.
Support as written.
Mayor Belsma.
Support.
That's confusing me, Mr. Mayor.
I know, and I tried to explain it, but I...
Yeah, but Mr. Mayor, if a reported vote is either in support or not support,
Correct.
so if I'm not in support and you are in support of a portion, then it has to be divided up. It cannot be just, I've never once done this in council, so
I know-
we better get this correct, because the way it's looking is that we're supporting it.
Yeah.
Yes. We are supporting it. So,
I
Councillor
get what you mean.
Councillor Trombetta,
can
you're
I
missing
answer this?
something. You're supporting a not.
I know what you're saying, and I understand what you mean.
So, at this point, do you want to change your vote?
Hold on, Mr.
Yeah.
Number one, the direction should come from you, should come from the clerk, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I am the chair.
I understand, but the direction of the clerk asked me if I was in support or not support. I said to the clerk, I am not in support. I'm final. Now all of a sudden, you've changed it. So the direction should come from the clerk on how it is. So now all of a sudden I got twisted and it shows like I'm supporting and not supporting. So I'm confused, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you are confused. Everybody else is getting it. So you're just missing a not.
I'm getting what you're saying. I'm just saying the terminology I'm not getting the way it's coming off. I understand what you're saying. You're saying you're supporting them that they came. I support them as well. They came. We're not in support, not interested in participating. We're
I know.
all on page with not supporting.
But we wrote in is not. There's an option for an is.
Okay, there you go.
Right.
Can we ask for, can we re-vote this again, Mel?
So that's what,
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do it
okay.
again.
Well, I think it's just you.
Councillor Trombetta.
You can continuously tell me it's me, Mr. Mayor. That's 3-4 times. Support.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And we're all in support that is carried. Never.
Mayor, I'm not supposed to target on me tonight.
No. Councillor Trombetta, you asked for clarification.
But the way it was coming off, I just want. I get it.
Well, no. You're not getting it because you're accusing me of putting words in your mouth. Is not. You circled the is not. If you put the is in there, I know I can just write it. Well, I just want to make sure because I'm the public record here. I just want you to understand it is not.
As long as it's not there, I'm not thanks, sir. It's
I'm glad to hear Madam CEO say that it won't be written like that again, because I can understand Councillor Trombetta's concern, because from just perspective, if you're not reading the whole thing, it does look like we're supporting it. If you don't look for that is not is going to be very tough for some people maybe to find at first glance if they just, if they're just looking at just the, as it is. So I understand his concern, but it was, to me, I understood what the mayor was saying, so I think we'd all appreciate a little bit more clarity.
You're supporting it.
I know.
That's
So-
what I'm trying to say. When it's reported, it shows that we support.
I know, but we're supporting and is not. And so you're absolutely correct. The
It's just
confusion
the
is
way-
understood.
That's why it's confusing.
Yep.
I'm glad we
Yeah.
collected that, or corrected that.
We will never do it like that
The,
again.
the challenge is the staff, and just for clarification, the staff doesn't know how we're gonna vote. Right. So the staff has to give us the option, an A or a B, or a yes or a no, or an is or an is not. So we spoke largely against it. The first two items obviously are motherhood and apple pie in terms of they're kind of those acknowledgements, and then the third one is a not. So you're supporting a not, and it's it.
I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, then unfortunately, the way it's written in the agenda needs to be fixed.
Well, I guess
Because it's broken up into three, so if you're asking for a recorded vote, you're breaking up into three separate things. The way we've done it is correct, I'm not
Yeah.
disputing it, but the way it's written in the agenda and the way it comes off tape shows it's supported. That's what it looks like. So it can be misconcepted by the public.
no, and so we understand that, but nevertheless, from a meetings perspective,
I understand.
you generally pull for support.
And I'm not disputing the way we
Yeah.
voted on it. You're absolutely right in that sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But the way it's perceived in the public, it looks like it's
Well,
supported.
I think that we'll let the public figure out how they read it, and when they ask us questions, we can say, we can point to the resolution.
Reported vote, if it's
Yeah.
voted on.
Councillor Riley, maybe.
I just have one quick.
I wanna move on,
I know,
yeah.
I know. I'm just wondering, because I think the confusion came because the staff asked permission to thank the representative.
Yeah.
To me, is that normal that
Yeah.
they need our
Very
consent to thank them?
very
Okay,
typical.
because I feel like it's something like, that's what Councilor Torres.
It provides context.
If that was on its own and then maybe the bottom was just like, and then the position of, I agree, I think it could have been broken up, so hopefully we don't have that problem again, but we should just move
Yeah,
on.
yeah. We will figure out a better way. Members of council, we have council remarks, and I'm also going to ask the CAO for a remark, but I'm going to start on the right here, my right, Councillor Jonker.
Yeah, I just thought I'd let council know that I did attend the windmill working group, multi-municipal windmill, I don't have my notes, I couldn't find them, but can you help me out? What is
Yeah,
it?
multi-municipal
Municipal-
wind turbine working group.
Yes, I attended that in January. The beautiful thing is, you leave here and it's raining, and you get to halfway there, and it's like, wow, I'm wondering if they're going to cancel this meeting. It's snowing. But we did get there safely and got back home safely. We were able to thankfully elect a new chair and a vice chair. That will be in the minutes when they provide them. It was Doug Murray was voted in as chair. Vice chair, I can't remember what his name is at the moment. And, yeah, they also approved their budget for the coming year. That will be sent and shared with everybody. And just, it looks like there will be no increases in fees, which is good there. So, and yeah, they're still working at always being informed and informing the municipalities of their membership of what's going on. I think we've reported it before. I think the biggest issue we're going to be facing now is not stopping what we have here, but when it does break down, when it does need to be demolished, removed, how do we do that? Those are issues that we're going to be facing in the future. I think they were all surprised. We've been fortunate, I believe, with how things have gone here compared to other municipalities with complaints. And but yeah, we are definitely, they're always shocked when we say how high ours are. right? They're huge compared to everybody else, and that might be what is helping it here. And they're also, there's an engineer on staff that they have, he's willing to come out, do noise tests and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd let the staff know that if there's anybody that calls and says, hey, there's, there is that opportunity, we can pull in their expertise to have them come test for noise and stuff like that. There was a report, they always keep us up to date on what's happening, windmills falling down and such. And there was one in New York City that fell, but it was actually a wind turbine that is on the roof and it spins completely opposite of what the norm is, right? So it was not a big, huge windmill, but at the same time, just kind of interesting. So that committee is still hard at work. They're still active in the community, and I think they do a lot of good work there, and I'll definitely be in support that we stay on this committee and continue to support them in their work. And yeah, it's just one of those committees that it's like, wow, that's a long drive for a couple hours worth of meeting. For an hour and a half meeting, you drive, I think, 3 hours to get there. But it's good that we stay at the table there. And I also wanted to just let you know that we have a transportation meeting for the region coming up in February that I will be attending. That's on the 25th, I think. So,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Ganad.
Okay, so Mayor Bylsma talked about the hospital. I also attended the Community Advisory Committee meeting last Thursday. And so I do have some facts that can be shared. They're not high level. This is actually part of a campaign that Hamilton Health Sciences, in combination with all of the people on that committee, want to start putting out. It's called What's Up at West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. This is a January 2020 edition. And there will be others coming out to inform the public as to what's going on. So I'm just going to actually read from part of this so that I don't get it wrong. So designing the new hospital, as you know, the Government of Ontario approved the next step toward rebuilding West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. The new hospital will include inpatient care, an emergency department, maternal and newborn services, day surgery, endoscopy, diagnostic services, and ambulatory services. Detailed plans are being created and will be completed by the fall of 2020 or sooner. The hope is sooner, of course. Everyone is working to get shovels in the ground as quickly as possible. But the caveat is all things take time, and hopefully they can move quickly through stage 2 because stage 3 is actually quite a long process. So further to that, the operating room renovations are on time. Work is underway to fix the operating rooms and endoscopy area to meet all required safety and infection control standards. And here's what's happening. So completed, the design work is done, the hazmat assessment is done, and documentation has been submitted to the local building department. And the next steps are to start construction of that new OR in the spring of 2020, to complete construction through the summer and be ready to reopen the operating rooms in the fall. There's a new program that they have put together to look at the nursing situation. So there's a nationwide shortage of OR nurses. So we're training our own, meaning the existing staff, to help increase the number of OR nurses at West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. Hamilton Health Sciences will pay and train 4 successful nurse applicants to gain the special skills needed to work in the operating room. And apparently, although there are only 4, they have 19 applications. So they're very encouraged by the number of applications. Nurses who are existing, who are looking to gain those skills or complete the circle if they have one portion that they're very skilled in, looking to complete the other portion. So the program is designed and supported by the Nurses Union. Positions are listed and the interviews are underway. And so the next steps for that are to complete the selection process, and the training will start in February of 2020. So the good news moving forward. So I'm going to pass that on to, as well. I think we'll find a way to make sure that that gets out to the public as well. Eventually, I think that you will start to see those things in the newspapers as they come out, but they're still figuring out how that's going to work. I thought that staff and council, because we ate many of those Smile cookies over the time, as probably many people who watch this video as well might. The total proceeds from our three, Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln Tim Hortons, was almost $40,000, $39,259. That's a lot of cookies. So I think that there were a lot of people that made a really good contribution to that. The Tree of Healthy Wishes campaign, under the foundation as well, the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation, raised $124,450. And of course, the trees were around in West Lincoln and Beamsville and the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital grounds. Coming up, though, is an interesting one that they actually started. They're doing 2019-2020 Sharing the Wealth for Health annual. It's a 50-50 draw. It was launched at the Smithville Holiday Show on November 16th at our community center, and they're going to continue to sell tickets throughout at the Grimsby Home and Garden Show in April and other various things, and it'll be drawn actually at our fair, the West Niagara Fair in September. So lots of opportunities coming up, and if you want to help out in some small way, buy a 50-50 draw ticket or several 50-50 draw tickets, because obviously that will aid the foundation as well. So thanks.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to make it brief. Actually, just to, I guess, follow up on Councillor Ganan's comments about the Smile cookie. I know I'm still working off my Smile cookies, so I definitely contributed to that. I just guess you guys kind of covered a little bit with Roma. I'll just make a couple quick comments. As Councillor would have been, our regional councillor would have been mentioned about the slowdown workshop we ended up going with. That was done by Brian Malone, Vice President of SEMA Plus, and I thought that was a really I'm really grateful I was able to take advantage of that opportunity. It kind of opened my eyes to even what our staff has to consider and what they have to deal with when it comes to planning. There's definitely a few ideas I was able to walk away there that I plan on mentioning at a later date here at council. But it definitely opened up the understanding of what's actually involved, and we can't just obviously put a stop sign there just because we want to. And there's other techniques in understanding the individual that is actually causing the traffic issue to be able to address that. So again, that was really good. I won't really go into that. I did want to mention February. I finally get my first chance to be a part of the MPEI Board of Directors. That's taken place in February, as well as I've recently become part of the Board of Directors for the EHC, the Employment Health Center. And so that takes place in February as well for me. So I'll hopefully be able to report some information from that in the near future. And so then I think the only other thing to mention was there's something I saw that I don't think anybody mentioned yet, and if I'm repeating myself because I was writing notes while you're talking, I'm sorry. But I know that we have this 30th, I don't know if Councilor Gannon, if you mentioned this, I apologize if I'm duplicating it, but on the 30th we have the Smithville Master Community Plan meeting that's taking place here, West Lincoln Community Center, if I'm not mistaken, and that's yeah, right. So that's from 6 to 8. So I hope that we can get our community together and everybody can be in attendance for that. And yeah, and other than that, I think that's all I have to report for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'm not a member of council, but I do appreciate you letting me say something here. I just wanted to let council know or remind you about we're doing the refresh of the economic development plan. And this is following on with Boulevard Strategy, who did our corporate strategic plan. So in the next couple days, we're going to see an online survey go out for feedback from businesses in the municipality, and in terms of their thoughts about their challenges in terms of economic development. And then there's going to be a really key stakeholder working group on February 7th. The mayor will be making some opening remarks for that, but that'll be a facilitated session by Aaron Ohosky again. And our intent is to bring the refreshed economic development plan back to committee on February 18th. And we are actually pushing forward quite significantly because there's a rural economic development grant application that is due February 24th. So We are hoping that through the economic development refresh exercise, we will identify a project that we can be making a submission for through the grant. And they don't come up very often, so we want to make sure that we do have the opportunity to take advantage of that grant opportunity, which would fit our rural economic development platform. Thank you.
Have a resolution for bylaws.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Gann, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw numbers 2020-03, 2020-04, 2020-05, 2020-06, 2020-07, 2020-08, 2020-09, 2020-10, and 2020-11, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
You've heard the resolution by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Gann. Any comments, questions, ones to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Trombetta, you have a resolution to go into closed.
Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Riley, that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public to consider the following procession to Section 239-2 of the Municipal Act 2001, ACAO Bev Hendry, a personal matter relating to an undividable individual performance review application, closed session exemptions. Personal matters about an unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta, seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. This meeting does now move into close. Thank you for those in the gallery who participated. Very routine evening. And we'll let things get adjusted here.